What's happening, guys? Kenny here again, and today I have another On My Mind video. And what I'm going to be talking about today, this is going to be another HRC testing result video. So there were 4 knives tested in this batch, and one of the knives I don't have with me. I actually sold it, so that one's gone. But I obviously have the results for it. First off, I'll be talking about the Cold Steel American Lawman, and this one is in, I don't know if this is going to come out, this is in XHP. Yeah, I can't get it to focus. So this is an XHP, and then second is going to be a knife that's not here. That's going to be the Spyderco PM2 in S110. And then next will be the 20CV Benchmade Mini Grip. That'll be third on the list. And then last but not least will be the Spyderco Para 3 in S30V. Wait, oh yeah, S30V. Anyways, I know it's not gonna focus for me. So yeah, that's gonna be the basic idea of the video. Just another results video. I am going to I'm going to talk about a few things just because I want to clear some things up for you guys, because I think there's a lot of misconception that happens in this, not only in this community, but also just with this testing. I want to clear some things up because I may have misspoken earlier, just talking about it and not using my verbiage properly so that you don't misconstrue what I'm trying to say. So in saying that, what I'll talk about first, I'm going to be looking at some notes here, guys, so sorry if I'm looking down. First, I'm going to talk about the fact that a heat treat, guys, that number I'm looking for here, that HRC number, is not the end-all be-all. I want you guys to understand that, because I didn't really talk about this, and it's important. That number we're looking for with this testing is only part of the story. That number, we want it to get high, and a lot of these companies will say like, oh, it's going to be between 58 and 60 HRC. And if it comes out at 58 or 59.8, that's a big difference, guys. For one, I want you to understand that. When you're talking just a few points in Rockwell, especially when you're getting up into like the 60s, 59.2 to 59.6 is a big difference in actual performance that you're going to see. I think that that's misconstrued sometimes. You think, oh, it's just a point, it's nothing. The difference between 60 and 61 is going to be exponential, guys. It's going to be a big time difference. So that's another thing, that a range of 58 to 61, or I mean 58 to 60, that's a big gap there, guys. So that's a wide range for these guys to hit. But on top of that, that number is only part of the story, and the tempering and annealing process and all the other things that go into that heat treat are just as important as that number. So that's why you guys will see, for instance, I'm gonna kind of refer to Steve's testing here, because you'll see that even though the HRC number of his Sabinza 25, the fine edge holding was very similar to some of the S35 done by like Spyderco, for instance, because the Rockwell was at the same number. Now, however, the grain structure, because of CRK's very, very particular heat treat, they've gotten it down to a science, and that their carbides and everything have been annealed, or have been tempered to as tight and fine of a grain structure as they could get at that HRC. So now you're going to see something like, even though the fine edge holding, because of that super fine apex, even though that broke down at the same level as the other steel at the same HRC, once it went to working edge, it was insane how much longer that edge was going to hold. Even though it's at the same HRC, it's going to hold that much longer because of the fine grain structure that's been accomplished there. So I just want you guys to understand that the HRC number is only part of the story. And if you have a steel that's heat treated to 63, 64 HRC, but not tempered properly, and go through the cryo, go through the cryo and everything, it's gonna be brittle. It's gonna, the apex is just gonna break down too quickly anyway. So HRC without a proper tempering process, it's nothing. It's not gonna matter at all. So I just want to get that out of the way. Also, I want to talk about the PMI gun that's being used to test the makeup of these steels. In the past, on another video, I said they shoot the laser at the blade, and someone came back and said it's not a laser. And yeah, you know, he's right in a sense. Well, but he's not in another sense, because it's an X-ray laser. It's a laser, guys, but it's an X-ray. Laser is just pretty much talking about the beam. It's a beam. It's not, maybe not a laser beam, but it's an X-ray beam. So it uses a beam of X-rays. It shoots it. I'm going to explain how it works. It shoots the X-ray beams at the piece of steel or whatever you're testing. It shoots the beam at the object, and then the atoms absorb the X-rays. Now, those atoms become excited with the energy that you just sent to it. You know, you sent this X-ray beam, it shoots, it excites the atoms differently depending on the element that it's exciting. So different elements are excited in different ways. And what this machine does is when you shoot it with the X-rays, it excites them, and then it gives off the energy in different ways depending on the element. So with that energy that it sends off, that what they call secondary X-ray, it measures those that secondary X-ray, and then tells you what element it is. That's how this thing figures out what element it's looking at. So it's not exactly a laser beam, guys. I shouldn't have said that. You know, the verbiage was not correct. But it's an X-ray beam. It's an X-ray fluorescence is what they call it. So I just want to get that out of the way and make sure that the information I'm giving you is correct. That machine does find the composition with secondary X-ray. It emits the beams, and then it reads off of it, which is most of these things. Just like a radar kind of works that way. It shoots out, you know, it shoots out the sonar, and it comes back with a certain thing. So that's how a lot of these things work. It just shoots stuff out, and the way it returns is how it reads what's going on. So that's a simple, I know it's not a very scientific way of explaining it, but I wanted to keep it simple for most people to understand. So that's just the quick version of that, okay? And I'm going to flip this around, and we're going to talk about the steels now that we're already 8 minutes in. I just wanted to get all that stuff out of the way. All right, and here we go, guys. Right into it. Results. All right, so we're going to start off with XHP. Let's go ahead and get right into it here. First, I'm going to show you the PMI gun readings, and I'll go ahead and put the picture on the screen here of the PMI gun shooting this knife. First, we'll start with the shot on edge. Now, as you'll see, one of these shots, you'll see the first one, it says it's a shot on the edge, but it says, now you'll see here, I'm going to bring you back, it says short shot. These were on the back, guys, so I just went ahead and moved it to the front so we could see. Short shot, but still picked up some coating. So what a short shot means is it's a quick shot at the edge, and it's ended before it reads too deep in so that it doesn't get some of the coating. It's just trying to get it without the coating picked up. So that's the sure shot, and then we have another reading. This is shot through the DLC. So you'll see some discrepancies in between these two readings. You'll see, like, for instance, like the molybdenum's a little higher here. You know, stuff like, obviously you got nickel over here and not over here. That's in the coating. So just stuff like that, and you'll see some readings over here that are just different than over here. So that's why that's why he shoots both, and that's why he also gives me both. Like, for instance, this has titanium here. Yeah, that's in the coating, guys. Titanium nitride or something like that, probably in the coating. So we're going to go at the one that supposedly doesn't have the coating, just to show you that. And in saying that, we'll go ahead and show the The molybdenum is at 0.793, which if you look here, it's supposed to be at 0.8. But as you saw, this one's at 0.926. So that's probably really close. It's probably right on par with what it should be. And then down here, you'll see that the manganese, there's no manganese in here. It's supposed to be at 0.50, but there's none showing here. And let me see if it's on the other one. Yeah, so on the other one it shows 0.64. So yeah, there could be some discrepancy in between these two. And even though you could say, oh, it's on the coating on this one, maybe not. Maybe it just read what's actually in the steel on that one. It's hard to say without knowing for sure with the coating and everything. So yeah, moving along. Sorry, got lock screen here. Moving right along, we got some chromiums at 16.759. Over here, chromium's at 1.6. So 1.67, that's a little higher. Actually, a lot higher. But you'll see the blue dot means it's above, the red dot means it's below. So that's kind of how I did that. Oh, this is not a markup here, guys. That just bled through another sheet. Yeah, so the numbers are pretty good here, guys. It's definitely seems to be XHP. As you guys can see, XHP is a very relatively simple steel compared to some of these other ones we're going to be talking about. But really nicely done. Very well done. And we're going to go ahead and talk next about the heat treat on this guy. We're going to talk about what it came up at. What I'm going to do there is I'm going to go ahead and put the picture on the screen of it shooting, of the machine testing the steel. Go ahead and do that. Bring that up onto the screen. And we're going to go ahead and show you what that is. And as you saw, 60.3 HRC, which is right in line with what XHP wants. XHP wants to be in between 60 and 62, seems to be like right about where it wants to be. Now, of course, you can go higher. It can go all the way up into 64 from what I've read about XHP. Sorry, I'm kind of bringing up some other stuff here, but yeah, from what I've read, XHP, it's a, you know, it can take a higher HRC, but you're talking in like the custom range and stuff. When you can really pay attention to your tempering process and stuff. You can see there where this was tested. See the dimple? So it definitely was tested on the flats and done correctly. And guys, I know another guy argued with me about, or not argued, I should say, but he asked me a question like, well, you know, the spine's gonna be softer than the blade. You know, that's what they're doing. They're gonna make the spine softer than the blade. So if you're testing it up here, that shouldn't be a true representation of what the steel is at the edge. And guys, that's not true. Maybe in a custom level, yeah, that could be true. Like I know in a lot of custom knives, they will actually heat up you know, you do a different heat on the edge as on the spine to keep the spine softer than the edge. But to be honest, guys, these companies aren't doing that. It's not actually happening on these steels, because in a production world, you just can't do that. You got about, you know, 200 of these blades in a room at the same time being heat treated in the same room. There's no way you can heat treat this more than this. Also, they do the grinding on these blades after the heat treat, because in this type of production heat treating, you can't heat the edge up less than the spine. And if you're heating this whole blade up to the same temperature, but you don't have anything on the spine to protect it or anything on the blade to protect it from getting too hot, you would have warping in the blade. So they don't grind this till after they're heat treated. So there's no way you would get a different HRC here than here unless it's actually a bad heat treat where it didn't properly distribute the carbides or distribute the heat for that matter. So these blades are cut into a blank and then they're heat treated, and then they do the grinding afterwards. So you're not going to get a different heat treat on the edge as on the spine, guys. That's definitely a misconception I think people have. In custom knives they do that, but not in production knives for the most part, guys. I'm speaking generally, obviously, but yeah. So you should get the same HRC right here as right here, if the heat treat's done well. Now, in saying that, I know I rambled on a little bit there, but yeah. So 60.3. That's not bad. It's right in range, and I know my my American. I'm sorry, I'm about to say American Hunter. I know my Ultimate Hunter. Sorry, this thing's been in the screen. The Ultimate Hunter had 60.5, so it's right in line with what we're seeing from from Cold Steel. So yeah, very well done, Cold Steel, and keeping it up. You know, if we see one drop below 60, then we got a problem. They're right in between 60 and 62 at this point. I think they even had one higher, 62.5, on Kurt's testing. But yeah. So yeah, guys, by the way, if you didn't know this, if you haven't watched these before, I will link the spreadsheet that David from Blade Banner's been working on, and thank you so much, David, for the work you do on that. I've been trying to help him out a little bit and give him the numbers at least, and look up what they're supposed to be at, target HRCs and stuff. So, but he is doing great work for us, guys, and without him, all these numbers would just be out in the world. They wouldn't be compiled into a really nicely done spreadsheet. So thanks again, David. Everyone thank David at Blade Banner. And if you haven't heard of David at Blade Banner, you should definitely go check out his channel. Really great guy with a lot of great information and some really, really awesome just really, really nicely done tests he has that he really, he went above and beyond and thought of different ways to make a cool contraption that would test things objectively instead of subjectively. But I'll go check him out if you guys have not heard of David at Blade Banner. Now, I'm going to go ahead and move along, guys. I know I went a long time on that American Hunter. I'm going to move right into the PM2. This is the PM2 in S110v CPM. And so that's done by Crucible. And let's go ahead and look at the numbers here. I am going to show you guys something because this is something that I do. I don't always do this, but I am going to now. I should say I have kind of tested what they say on this app, but this is something to keep in mind, guys. This knife app they have isn't always correct. You know, he tries to get all the information from other sites, but he's not always correct. Because I looked at this number here for S110, I started looking at these numbers, and I noticed these were pretty far off. And then what I did is I went ahead and checked against CPM's site, and these numbers were different on CPM's site. So that's where I got to say, you always want to back check the information you're looking at, because sometimes it's not necessarily true. So here we've got, so molybdenum is at 2.38. Here it says it should be at 3.50. That is pretty low compared to what they say. The niobium's at 3.297. And this is at 3.50. So again, low on the niobium. These are both carbide formers, molybdenum and niobium. They're going to create carbides. They're actually smaller carbides than something like tungsten or vanadium. So those are really good elements to have in your steel. And then on top of that, we've got some copper, which is not necessarily supposed to be in it, but copper does help with some surface deoxidation. It tries to keep the oxides from forming on the blade surface as it's being tempered and stuff like that. Also, we have some cobalt, 2.557, which cobalt's supposed to be 2.0, so it's a little high there. We do have some manganese, which it's kind of like a question mark here. It's not necessarily supposed to be in there is what that means, but it can be, and it is at 0.314. And manganese it helps with the degasifying the steel as they're working it,
and getting it into form. So that helps it helps with toughness and just like the carbide formation. It keeps the, I shouldn't even say carbide formation, it just helps with the grain structure. Keep everything tight, don't let any air pockets in there and stuff like that. Chromium is a little higher. So the chromium's supposed to be at, let's see here, 14, and it's at 15.791. That is significantly higher on the chromium than what's supposed to be in there at 14. And then vanadium's a little high too. That's supposed to be at 9. This is at 9.272. So honestly, guys, if you look at these numbers, you almost see that the carbide formation that was supposed to happen here is kind of extra here. So you can always have some carbide formation flip there. Now, in the sense of that could have been happening in the austenitizing process or something, as the crystals, as everything was growing, as the elements were building and carbides were forming, that could have happened where those kind of got flip-flopped. And then silicon, guys, here. There is some silicon here, and a significant amount, 0.436, which here it doesn't show, has kind of a question mark on it. Now, what I was going to show you guys, and this is why I brought this up, is because if you look here, those numbers are actually a lot closer. See, the chromium's much higher here on crucibles calling on the S110 element. So 15.25, 15.79, it is high, but it's not as much higher as we thought looking at that other, the knife app. Now, vanadium is still high at 9. It's at 9.2. But see, here we got molybdenum a lot lower and cobalt a lot lower. These are actually more in line with what we're seeing here. The cobalt, the cobalt's right about where it was. But yeah, see, niobium's at 3%. That's a lot closer to what we have here. So that's where I'm saying you got to kind of cross-reference and make sure that your information's correct. But yeah, so as far as the makeup of this, I don't know if right now I'll show you guys the PMI gun shooting the S110v PM2. And when you see that, you'll see was this knife being tested, and it was done very well by Spyderco. They did a very good job with the makeup of the steel and the way it was heat treated, because you will see by the way, so with S110v, the target by CPM, what they say is between 58 and 61, and they came up at 62, guys. I'm gonna go ahead and show the machine testing the knife, and you will see it is at 62 HRC, which is very well done, guys. That is actually higher than Crucible calls for the steel. But again, what Crucible is saying, when they're saying we want the steel, you should target between 58 and 61, what they're saying is like for the industrial type of thing. Now we're talking about knives. We're talking about something different. And in knives, we can go higher with that HRC because of application, guys. We got to talk about application when you're really talking about these knife steels. And you can see here, if I bring up their chart, you can see, it could get all the way up into 65 almost. You're probably at about 64 HRC. And then it starts to drop off dramatically. So it can probably even go higher. Now, would you want to do that in a knife steel? Not necessarily, okay? So that's where you just want to say it's really dependent on the knife steels. As you can see, typical application hardness is 58 to 61. We've gone higher in this cutlery, and it was perfectly fine. If you guys saw my toughness test, the S110V was in that toughness test, and it did very well, actually. Even at that 62 HRC, which most people would say would be brittle, it did very well. And it almost competed with K390 in a sense, and K390 is supposed to be much tougher in a sense. I gotta take a drink of coffee here, guys. Alright, moving right along, guys. Sorry for not having the knife. I did sell that knife to Sinister Kid, I think it's 5555 or 555 on Instagram. I want to thank you, buddy, for buying that knife. It did help support the channel and help me get another knife. So I want to want to say shout out to him. Thank you. And I'm glad it went to a good home. Much rather sell it to someone that's going to enjoy it. So, I mean, I did enjoy it. Don't get me wrong. That's not what I'm saying. So anyways, moving along, I'm going to go into the mini grip. This is the Benchmade Mini Grip. Slide him into the picture here. I'll go ahead and show you. You see there's the dimple from the testing. Okay, so we've got 20 CV. And here are the numbers. We're looking at 1.9. Look at the numbers compared. Sorry for kind of bouncing around a little bit here, guys. Definitely trying to keep it shorter, but there's a lot of information in this video, especially with that intro. So we got molybdenum's a little low. Let's go ahead and look at that. That's a carbide former, as I said before. So molybdenum's supposed to be at 1. It's at 0.885. As you guys can see, this was shot on the edge. Sorry. This was shot on the edge. But it did get some coating. So that's what that picture is too. So we got, like I said, molybdenum's a little low. Tungsten is a little low. Should be at 0.6. It's at 0.47. The copper's a little high. So copper shouldn't even be in there, actually. So copper's one of those things. Copper's not necessarily supposed to be in steel. But when it's in between 0.1 and 0.2 and 1%, it actually helps with surface oxidation. So we don't get any like weird formations on the surface of the steel. And that's what copper is going to help with. Now, it's not necessary. With too much copper, you're going to get actually an issue with, it's just going to make the steel more brittle. So you can't have too much copper, but a little bit helps with surface oxidation. So moving right along, that's of course iron again, guys. The Fe is iron. Chromium's a little low. That should be at 20. It's at 19. So that is definitely almost a percentage low. That's not good. But it's okay. We're a little high on vanadium, which is good. You know, a little extra carbide formation, but that should be at 4. The phosphorus it's a question mark on how much is going to be in there, but it's there, you know. And then it's 0.221, so it's not a lot. Phosphorus helps with deoxidizing, kind of same as like manganese. It helps with just keeping the steel tight, the formation tight. So, and then silicon, which is the same type of thing, and that says it should be at 0.3. It's at 4, guys. So that's 4.686. So that could be somewhat getting a reading on the coating. I don't know, but that's a lot more than should be in there. And if you guys look here, you want to look at what silicon's doing in the steel. It contributes to strength. Like manganese, like I said, it helps deoxidize and degasify. So it's just helping the steel. It helps keep all the air bubbles and stuff out of the steel. So as it forms, it just keeps it nice and tight. You don't have any open cracks and stuff in the steel. It just helps keep everything really tight. Now, let me see. Let me show you what Crucible says about 20 CV. So you see here, the numbers are really similar to what the other the knife steel app says. So that's really good. You know, it's really just basically what it's supposed to be, but a lot less chromium than it should be. You know, 1% less chromium. That's significant. And then also more silicon, which is a little weird. A lot more silicon. So, yeah, in saying that, we're going to go ahead and I'm going to show the machine testing this blade. And again, you saw the dimple. And as you can see from that picture, we're at 58.9, guys. We are under their target number. Now, I will put that on the screen right now. Benchmade does call out what their advertised HRC is, and we are under their advertised HRC. Now, you know, they go above and beyond by showing their target HRC, which Spyderco does not do. They don't even want people to get that in their head. But they're under that target. And not only are they under the target, that's just low, guys. I'm not happy with the fact that this is under 59. I'm not happy that it's even at 59. It should be at 60, guys. This should be at 60 HRC plus if we're really talking 20 CV. I'm very, very disappointed with this result. I did notice in use it felt soft compared to even the other 20 CV I have. And that's another thing, guys. 58.9, that's 0.3 below the other 20 CV I have. And I will tell you that it was noticeable. I mean, that sounds crazy, but it was noticeable. I really did notice the difference with this being just, you know, in deburring and everything. It felt softer in a sense of like, it felt like a steel that wasn't as high in carbides. Then also just deburring, it just didn't feel as crisp as the other one. And the edge didn't feel as crisp either. It did take a nice edge, but just not as crisp as my 940. And then again, when I compare it to my M390 from my Nakamura, the Nakamura feels even better than the 940. So 0.3, you know, 0.3% difference between the two, and I definitely noticed. Not percent, 0.3% HRC, the heat treat, Rockwell testing lower, 0.3 Rockwell testing lower, but yeah, definitely noticed the difference between this and the other 20 CV. So that's really disappointing, guys. But it is just let's just put it this way. Benchmade's going to hear about this, guys. I am going to definitely be sending this back to them with my S30 as well, which came up low. Benchmade's not having a good testing on any of these tests I've been doing. So hopefully that changes here. Hopefully it starts picking up because I love Benchmade and it just sucks. It really just sucks because I love their design. Yeah. And moving along, guys. I know this is going to be a really long one. We are going to move along into the Para 3, guys. Spyderco. Here we go. Now, as you guys can tell, as you guys have seen this knife in the past, this is one that kind of blew my mind, guys, just a little bit. And let me go ahead and talk about the elements first. He did shoot the edge, and it looks like a pretty clean shot on the edge, he says. So we got a pretty true reading on what the steel has, what this particular blade has in it. And we'll go ahead and bring that up. Give me 1 second, guys. And I did cross-reference this with what Crucible says on their site, so I can bring that up too if you want to see it. And it's really right in line. You know, it's right there with the molybdenum. It's a little high. It should be at 2%, but it's just slightly high. There is missing wolfram, which is tungsten. That should be there. It's not. The chromium is a little low. Should be at 14. It's at 13.7. The vanadium's a little high at 4%, 4.09, which is barely above 4%, which is where it should be. And that's pretty much the end of it there. You see a lot of stuff here that's not in the steel that should be. It's not necessarily should be. Because if you look at Crucible's reading on what S30 should be, go ahead and bring that up. It's not really there on their sheet. So it's not necessarily supposed to be in the steel. It's just stuff that could be to help the annealing process and all that and the tempering. But it's not necessarily supposed to be in the steel as per their recommendation and what they say on their site. So those are just additives that could be in there. Now, as far as the wolfram, that's not even on their list. So that's weird to me a little bit. So it doesn't really even supposed to have tungsten in it. But if you look at the knife app, the Knife Steel app, it says it should be, but very low numbers. So just a little bit of a speculatory, just a little weird. But yeah, so that it seems to be S30. Everything's fine there. Everything seems to be good. Now, if you want to see, here is the dimple where it's tested. See it there? And guys, I'm going to show the machine shooting this or testing this knife. And you guys are going to see, came up at 60 HRC, guys. 60.3. That is excellent. Spyderco does not specify what their target HRC is on this, but every other knife company that does S30 usually tries to target between 58 and 60. This is at 60.3. So they went not only to that target, but above. And they don't advertise what they're supposed to be, but you know that's where they're probably trying to get. And this is above what they were trying to get. As you guys probably know if you watch my channel, this knife is kind of like the one that tipped me over the edge. And guys, the first one I got was really well done. And I did notice, this is the thing you'll notice, I talked about this knife as saying it was so easy to sharpen compared to my S30 from Benchmade. I thought Benchmade's would come up harder. This is where, guys, I'm going to kind of ramble a little bit. This is where Steve talks about, Steve has said this before, and I don't think people really take it to heart until, I mean, you might take it to heart right now. This steel is higher than any Benchmades I've seen yet in their S30, and it feels easier to sharpen. It's way easier to apex, I feel like, than some of the S30s from Benchmade. This is really just solidifying, validating what Steve says, that HRC, just because the steel's harder, doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be harder to sharpen. If it's done well, and in the tempering process and everything that's done, it's done well, it should be easier to machine. It should almost, it should be easier to apex. The apex, instead of getting like, if the steel's kind of soft, it could push the apex over and it's not going to come up as crisp. When you have a well-done steel at the right HRC and tempered properly, that apex should come up even easier, and the burr should come off easier as well. It should just come up crisper, in a sense. So that's really just a testament to what Steve says, and I just learned it like straight up. Like, oh, I was wrong about this one. I thought it would come up softer, but man, I'm so stoked because I did notice how crisp of an edge this took. It was so sharp. Even the first time I put an edge on it, I did freehand and it came up really easy. And I'm just really impressed by this. Nicely done, Spyderco. And I hope that we can get some other S30 tested and see if it comes up in that same range or if it's gonna vary a lot. Because I know that I've heard a lot of people, I think other people have tested this and it's come up low. So I wish that they would just get a more consistent, a consistent read on what they're getting in their HRC. I think that comes down to also having smaller batches, maybe doing it in a smaller room where they're heat treating these steels. Do less steels in a smaller area so you get less variance of the heat that's getting applied to the steel, to the blade. So, oh man, I know this was a lot, guys. This is going to be a long one. I'm going to go ahead and flip this around and do a follow-up and just kind of conclusion of this whole thing. So, here we go.
All right, guys. So, in conclusion, we really want to just say that I'm surprised by this knife. Really, just really happily surprised by that Para 3, and really disappointed by this knife, guys, by Benchmade here. And that's not saying I'm like, we think that Spyderco is doing a better job than Benchmade or anything like that. I'm not trying to say anything like that. I'm just showing you results, guys, and hopefully that I'm gonna see a change in what's going on. But I'm definitely gonna show these results to Benchmade, and I'm gonna try and let them know, like, for one, I'm unhappy. I'm just unhappy, especially with that S30 940. That was just absurd with it being that low and horribly ground from the factory. So there's a lot of things, a lot of elements bad there. I want to say that I just want you to understand that these HRC numbers are not, they're not, for one, it doesn't even matter to you. Does it matter to the end user? In some cases, it doesn't. On this blade, for me, it mattered. I noticed right away. And the fact that this seemed to be a really badly burnt edge as well. Or not burnt, but fatigued. I shouldn't say burnt, because that implies that it was actually burnt. I didn't see any discoloration on the steel, so I can't prove that it was burnt, but it was definitely fatigued or something, because I had chipping on the factory edge really bad, sharpened it up, went ahead and got chipping on the second edge just in normal use with cardboard, which was weird. And then I went up a third edge, and that third edge dulled pretty quickly. So I have noticed in use that this thing's just not up to par with what I expected from 20CV. This was my first 20CV knife, so my 940 was second, and that seemed to perform much better than this one. So in saying that, I think they do a decent job in the tempering process, because my 940 did take a really keen edge and stuff, but the numbers are low. So as far as like holding that working edge and stuff like that, or holding a fine edge, they're just not going to perform like we expect. And you can see that in Steve's testing. You know, no companies are really going nuts on this 20CV M390 family, or the analogs. No one's really hitting the numbers we want to see, which is between 60 and 62. We all want to see 62. I mean, that's really what we want to see, but it's going to be hard for a lot of these production companies to hit. And in saying that, I want to say that, like, again, those numbers, if an average user gets 20 CV at 63, they're not going to even be able to sharpen their knife, a lot of guys. So in saying that, it's kind of one of those things. I think between 61 and 62 is probably a really good number to hit for 20 CV. But until we start seeing companies actually hit that, we don't really know, because we need to be able to apply it, to use it, and see if just an average user can even notice the difference, or would even be able to sharpen their knives and get a good performance out of it. So that's just something to keep in mind. And also the fact that 20 CV at 59.5 performs really well. I'm not unhappy with the way that my 20 CV 940 performed. I'm not unhappy with the way my Nakamura performs. So I'm just saying, for most users, I'm not saying don't go get 20 CV from Benchmade. I'm not saying any of that. Don't go get Spyderco 20 CV. What I'm saying is that we're just trying to hold these companies to what they're saying, and also to what should be done to where these steels can go. And if we're gonna go 20 CV, if someone's buying a 20 CV knife or a M390 or an S110 or an S90V, you know what you're getting into, essentially. You want that high carbide steel that's going to be hard to sharpen and hold an edge forever. So in saying that, give me what you're saying. Give me what you're promoting. Give me that. Give me that steel at that high HRC to where it performs to what it's capable of. Don't tell me I'm getting S90V and give it to me at 58 because you don't think I'm capable of using my steel at that high HRC. Because at a high HRC, they think that you're going to damage the steel. It's not made to pry. It's not made to do all these other things. So they think that most people are going to damage it. Well, if you're trying to get one of these super steels, you're probably a steel nerd. You're probably someone that's going to want to take care of their knife and know how to use that steel. And if you're not, you need to research, So I rambled on enough, and I'm going to go ahead. I have 4 more knives with skirt right now that are getting tested, and we're going to have 3 more knives, yeah. And we're going to have some fun next week or whatever it is when I can get to it. So that's going to be an interesting one, guys. Thank you guys so much for watching. I know I'm sorry this one was long. I hope that I know I didn't, my wording wasn't great here, and I stumbled over my words a lot, and it was just a lot of information that I tried to, and it got lost a little bit there. So sorry about that. I hope I made sense in all these cases, and I'll go ahead and I'll be back soon, guys, with another test, and I got another lot more ideas, guys, a lot more things coming. So it's hard to keep up with, and my mind is all over the place. I haven't forgot about any of the things I told you guys about either. I got so many projects going on at once. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.